Podcast. I'm your host, Ben, and today we have the one, the only Mr. Akiba. How's it going, man?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a good day. I've been talking gaming all day, so yeah, looking forward to it. Happy to be here. I was saying I'm not used to being on the other side of this thing, so um, keen to chat and have some fun.
Well, I appreciate you carving out some time out of your busy schedule to come chat today. Excited to dive in, but before we do, let's level up.
Take it to the next. Level. Take it to the next. Level. Level.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are ready to rock. We are fired up. Akiba, you're the absolute man. Just looking at some of the things that you're doing, you're a journalist and producer at CryptoSlate.
hmm
Previously consulted for some monster brands like Suzuki, Nike, Colgate, and you've directed you've written and directed Ex Cathedra
hmm
on Prime. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they are all things that I have done. Yes.
So I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you get to this point, and what's your story?
So where to start with that? Um, I went to university not knowing what to do. I knew I was good at English, and I love philosophy, so I did English and philosophy at university. And whilst I was there, um, I really got into filmmaking. Decided I was going to be the next Tarantino. That didn't work out, but hey ho. And yeah, decided to get into films, join the Film Society, fell in love with it. Learn every different part of filmmaking in order to try and be a better director. I wanted to experience each part of it. And then I was working as a camera op on another film, and it was an indie film. It got some lottery funding. And I decided that it's really arrogant, but like I could do it better. It was a little bit, it was really well written and it was a great film, but the organization was a bit poor. So I spent the next year with my friend Dan writing a film called Ex Cathedra. We then managed to beg, steal, and borrow equipment and actors. One of the actors actually turned down Darth Vader for the main role. So David Prowse, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. So he was the guy in the actual suit in the original Star Wars movies. We actually turned him down for the role because he wasn't quite what we needed. And also, I think part of me just wanted to say I turned down Darth Vader. Uh, and yeah, we made the film. It was like a huge success. Got it into some film festivals, and on the back of that, I started my own video production agency. Got asked by Converse to do a music video for them, and then yeah, the next kind of 15 years of my life was running an agency. And then after 15 years, I realized that I now run a really successful marketing agency and I can't stand marketing. I read a book by Chuck Palahniuk, the guy that wrote Fight Club. There's a book called Diary, and there's a quote in it that says, "The goal is not to live forever, but to create something that will." And I wasn't doing that in marketing. I was just adding to the pain of the universe with like Facebook ads and all this sort of crap. So during COVID, I've been into crypto like since like 2014. Here's the story for you. We were mining Dogecoin in 2014 with all the video production machines that we had in the office. My best friend Adam sort of suggested that we do it in the evening. So we asked everyone to, rather than turn off the machines when they went home, turn on the miner and leave the computer going. And we mined it for a good few months. Barely broke even with the energy cost. And after about 6 months, we were like, let's just shut this off. It's just a waste of time. We're just spending money on the energy, and it was only making us kind of maybe like $50 a month in dollars. So we just kind of forgot about it. And about a year late, so actually, I'll skip that bit. So then fast forward to 2021, Dogecoin obviously went through the roof. It made its way to like 71 cents just before the SNL skit. And me and Adam were then frantically looking around all the hard drives that we still have, every single one of them, trying to find the wallet and the private key to the drive. Long story short, I got a phone call from Adam after I pretty much given up on finding the wallets, like searching for .dat on every single hard drive. And he called me up when I was out with a client and said, I found the wallet. I was like, amazing. Like if like we calculated how much there should be on there, we can like split it up with all the people that worked at the agency at the time, and it'll be amazing if they get like several $1,000s worth of Dogecoin just airdropped to them. It'll be amazing. And then the wallet synced to the blockchain, and then Adam had the memory and realization that he had sold it all for Bitcoin in 2015 to buy a HDMI cable, which at the time was probably about $20. That $20 would have been roughly around about $80,000, maybe $100,000 in 2021. So I haven't done it yet. I keep saying I'm going to, and given I've told the story again, I'm going to have it. I'm going to put like here somewhere. I'm going to frame one of the HDMI cables downstairs and put, like, the Doge that we paid for it on it. So that was my inroad into crypto. But during the pandemic, I started writing again, which was something that's always been a passion of me. So I did English for a long time, and yeah, started writing articles for Benzinga. And then shared them with some other sites. An editor at the time at CryptoSlate called Maya interviewed me whilst I actually had COVID. I was isolating downstairs with COVID, and I had my interview, got through, and then the rest is history. I started working at CryptoSlate part-time whilst I was still consulting, because I downsized the agency in 2018 to just be a consultant, because, as I said, I'd completely fallen out of love with marketing. So I thought, consulting, maybe I can bear that because I'm working one-to-one with founders. But yeah, like started writing again and just absolutely fell in love with it. And it seems that all my experience to that point has actually made me a much better writer. And the fact that I can now have conversations with founders and I can talk about gaming, I can talk about blockchain, I can talk about servers, I can talk about marketing. Like there's lots of different kind of tools in my wheelhouse that I couldn't really exercise properly. I was always doing like something well and everything else badly, because you can't be like a master of everything. But with journalism, knowing a little bit of a lot really helps in connecting with people. And talking about connecting with people, I've just been talking for like 5 minutes straight, so I apologize.
I love it. That's what this is about. Wait, so you were talking about how it seems like everything had really led up to this point where now you get to be writing, you get to be doing the things talking about the things that you really want to be talking about.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal. It's amazing. I'm using all those skills. Launching the video side of CryptoSlate. I was just saying to you offline, we did a 13-hour live stream during the merge, and we had Polygon on, we had MetaMask, we had Consensus, we had Poker Starter. We had like literally 30 different companies, and I organized all of it. And I kind of, obviously with the merge, it was a moving target. We never knew when it was actually going to happen. But at some point, I had to try and figure out when we were going to live stream so I could book on all the guests. So at the time when I organized it, we worked out that it was likely to happen around maybe 9 p.m. UK time. So I set the stream up to be at 4 p.m. so I could do loads of guests before, have someone on during the actual merge happening, and then talk to people after it had happened. As we all know, as miners started to drop off and the hash rate fell down, the time for the merge moved later and later. And eventually it was around 7 in the morning UK time. And yeah, I'd already been streaming for like 13 hours. So once the Ethereum Foundation's live stream came on, I turned off the stream and amazingly slept through the actual merge after all that time. I just got on the sofa and just fell asleep. I had it on my phone trying to stay awake, but I couldn't. But yeah, we got raided by some other crypto channels. Had a really great audience the whole way through. And yeah, it was super fun. I'm just really enjoying just making content and telling stories and not having to worry about selling anything anymore. So
I
it's a
love
lot of fun.
that. I love that. So, what I'm really interested in diving into, in regards to this particular section of your history, is that transition from Web 2 to Web 3,
Mhm.
and moving from having a big marketing agency, and I mean, you're working with some amazing clients there. So
Mhm.
it takes a lot of work to build something. Seems like you got a little bit disillusioned with the marketing side of it. But what were the actual steps that you took to go from the Web 2 side into the Web 3 side? Was it just like, all right, let me press the launch button and blow it up and see what happens? Or was it calculated? Like, how'd you actually make that transition?
Um, it had just slowly started to become a bigger part of my life that I was interested in. I was getting through my work, but I'd always have like Trading View up or my portfolio, and I was reading and watching content constantly. And it's just the vision and mission of what we're currently calling Web3, but essentially kind of blockchain technology and what it can do for the world, and obviously for myself as well. I mean, I'm of the millennial generation where none of us have had savings. Most of my friends didn't move out from their parents' house until at least their mid-20s. Can't afford to get a house. Yeah, saving anything is nigh on impossible with all the bills and stuff that need to be paid. And when I ran my agency, yes, it was very successful, but I always tried to pay my staff as much as possible. That the company never made profit because I always used any money that would have been profit to give the staff a pay rise. I paid myself a fairly meager salary throughout as well, so I'd never really saved up much. I bought a house myself like during this time, so I have the kind of that as an investment. But I was kind of like, I think a lot of people, looking in for things that, one, I believe in, and two, um, that could maybe give me outsized gains in terms of investment to try and catch up on not really sort of saving throughout the rest of previous part of my life. And I think obviously a big part of that is also education. I went to a private school in Manchester and was never once taught even what kind of cumulative interest is. Sorry, compound interest. It just isn't a thing. And I think financial education is a real problem. And that kind of, I think, is part of the thing that led me to the position where I was starting to look at crypto again, because I say I was mining it in 2014, was interested during the sort of the 2017 bull run, but then between 2018 and 2020, I got married. So I was kind of focused on that to a degree as well. But I wasn't really kind of interested in anything other than maybe playing computer games. That was a lot of what I was doing. And yeah, in 2020, obviously with the pandemic, saw it as a time to kind of look for something that I was actually passionate about again. And I was looking at maybe getting a role in the gaming industry, but I was going to have to, obviously, any of the opportunities that I had were all within marketing, which I wasn't really a big fan of. And it was definitely gatekept by the fact of, in gaming, you still need several years experience even to get quite low level roles. Whereas I think one of the beauties of Web3, and anyone watching that is kind of working in sort of non-blockchain based companies, but have a strong skill set. One thing I would say is most Web3 businesses aren't looking for experience in blockchain. They're looking for people with an interest and passion for it, but the skill set that is found within Web2. I talk quite a bit with, the YouTube channel Coin Bureau.
Yep.
So they actually have their own recruitment arm now because they got so many requests for people wanting to work there. Guy decided to set up a recruitment agency. So I've talked to David and Guy quite a bit, and I find it really fascinating. And one of the things, David, who leads out the recruitment team, I believe, he was the one that said it to me. First of all, he's like, yeah, we're not looking for Web3 people. Like, we're looking for developers and stuff. That's where there's a big need. But we don't need people to have experience in blockchain. And I think that's what's allowed me to get to where I am already within Web3 is we need an influx of people from outside the industry to help it grow and to bring that sort of level of awareness of kind of the real world. Because I think a lot of blockchain companies have kind of a little bit, building in a silo and maybe building tech for other techie people, I think there's a lot of problems in Web3. I think the user experience is terrible. I think the language we use is terrible. And that's one of the reasons why we need people from Web2 to come across to help translate it for the rest of the world. And I think that's part of what I'm doing, or at least trying to do with my role. So yeah, there was no real kind of like building up to it. I just decided, hey, I've got skills. I can write. I know a lot about a lot of business related stuff. And I just started, like, my first thing was just writing kind of macro opinion pieces on the industry. Maya read them, loved them, brought me on for a trial for CryptoSlate. And within 3 months, I was editing Blocklight, which is our investigative arm, and we're not shelved it, but we've just paused it for the moment, because we decided that it's a very tricky area going into investigative journalism, and we had a couple of articles that did really well when we launched it, but CryptoSlate isn't a behemoth of a company. We don't have lawyers in every single country, so we've kind of just put that on a slight back burner unless anything really sort of juicy comes up, and we do have our feelers out. And that's why my role is now journalist and producer there, because I'm producing all the video content, and any sort of new media things. So I was saying, I've literally today been talking to one gaming studio that's about to launch on the Open Loop platform, and also talking to the head of gaming from Zilliqa about their new gaming console. So they'll be coming out in the next kind of week or two. And I'm just like a kid in a candy shop. I mean, my job is just to sit there and chat to cool people. And like I said, I've got nothing to sell, and that's the amazing part.
Yeah, that's a beautiful spot to be, especially if, because all the things that you've done, it sounds like, have really, like I said, led to this one spot. I mean, marketing is communications, writing and producing film, and now journalism and production. I mean, it really seems like you're really capturing the story of what's going on and speaking to a lot of people to hear a lot of stories and synthesize a bigger story from those different narratives.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious there. What are the dominant narratives that you're hearing about, that you're interfacing with, or the ones that, and I'm not asking from the perspective of like, let's give people the next top tip for the next 14 seconds of crypto, but more so the narratives of what do we really need as far as crypto to become mainstream? I mean, you talked about there's some wording issues, there's some tech people building techie things for even techier people issues. There's clearly a lack of human eyeballs on all of it issues. So what are you seeing as far as just some bigger narratives at play that may not be so easy to detect unless you are somebody like yourself who's in the trenches?
We need to stop talking about crypto and blockchain because no one cares. When you talk about Web2, when you talk about a new email app, you don't rave about its ability to use POP3 or IMAP. When you talk about anything on the internet, you don't, especially when it was launching, you don't talk about the revolutionary like TCP/IP protocol that's the backbone of Web2. There's no talk about the difference between IPv4 and IPv6 in terms of connections. Like the tech stuff that goes on behind anything in Web2 is just not part of the narrative. It's not part of the selling factor. Like you got what on the street and ask anyone what language Facebook is coded in. Like no one will have a clue at all or care. And I think it's the same with blockchain. I think terms like NFTs, just talking about blockchain, talking about crypto, like smart contracts, all of these things aren't relevant. What's relevant is the usability, the use case, and being able to work with it. And I think that's probably why I'm so interested in the Web3 gaming space at the moment, because there's some really interesting people that are talking about. So the Zilliqa console is a great example. So that's going to come out Q2 next year, and you're going to load it up. It's not going to come with a controller because everyone has a controller somewhere, or you can buy one secondhand. Keyboard and mouse also works. I think that's a great idea because gaming controllers are divisive anyway. So you plug your controller in, your keyboard and mouse, the screen will pop up. It's going to tell you to sort of log in, username, password, name, all that normal sort of stuff, and that will link you into the Zilliqa gaming hub, which is similar to like Battle.net or Epic Games or Steam. And then you just start playing. It's going to tell you that you've got a I'm not sure whether I'm going to use the word wallet, but essentially there's going to be a place where you can store your skins, is how they're going to refer to it, rather than NFTs, which I think is a great move.
Like your inventory.
Yeah. And then you're going to play your games. The wallet that's on there is going to basically act like a hardware wallet. It's linked to that device. So you're nice and secure. And you can just start playing Web3 games without to worry about how to set up a MetaMask, which blockchain you're on, changing the network. I mean, like, even for myself, when I first got into like using sort of the EVM system, figuring out how to add Binance Smart Chain to my MetaMask, like took me 20 minutes, and I've had to explain it to like my brother-in-law who wanted to get into NFTs. And like none of this stuff is viable if we want mass adoption. Like you think about things like the iPhone, they just work. You turn them on, you've got a great user experience when you first onboard into it. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Yes, no, yes, no. And I think who was I talking to? I was talking to. I forget. I talked to so many people, but someone was talking to me recently about that they look at their onboarding based on a Disney survey that was done years and years ago that was all about onboarding users, and came to the conclusion that users will always choose convenience over anything else, even over security. And that's super true. So I think the non-custodial and custodial elements of kind of wallets and stuff, that they're just not relevant to the first big wave of mass adoption. And I think that's when we're going to start to see real adoption, is when we start trying to gatekeep crypto and try and tell the rest of the world how clever we are because we've got this great tech and you don't understand it, because it's just putting people off. As soon as we become more inclusive, change the language, allow people for this kind of Web 2.5 way into crypto, I think that's when then people start feel comfortable with some of the other tools, and then you can start kind of like all the complicated stuff that we can think of today as Web3 should be like in the advanced menu. Like if you want to, like you can go under the hood and see all that stuff if you want to, but if not, just get in and start using it. Make it super easy.
So two paths I see that I'm interested in going down.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is for the people that are not making it super simple, but still found success and still have thousands of users, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of users. If convenience wasn't their winning thing, what was the thing that drove it for them? And then
There's always going to be people that want to be first movers into the technology. And I'm definitely one of them. And I think the people involved in Web3 now are those people, the people that are seeking out new things, new and exciting things, and are willing to take a risk on new technology. And also, to a degree, people that also understand it. I think there's a lot of people in Web3 that don't understand it, but I know for certain there's a lot of people that do. And for me, that's one of the things that drives me, is the complexity of it and how elegant some of the technology is and how broken some of the other parts of the technology is, and just seeing all these different avenues. And I'm not against the view that the Google of Web3 isn't even here yet. I think that's still completely feasible. Like, I'm old enough to remember like Alta Vista, AOL, Lycos, Ask Jeeves, all these companies that were the mainstay of the internet, Yahoo even, in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, that are just not around anymore. Like when I was growing up, I didn't use Google because it wasn't a thing. I was using other search engines like Lycos, Ask Jeeves, etc. Google came along and just took over everything. I still think that's possible with Web3. I think Ethereum as the sort of staple of Web3, because I do kind of think of like Bitcoin as one thing, and then pretty much everything else, like smart contract related, as that the rest of that is Web3. And yeah, it may be one of these blockchains like Cosmos or something. Will Solana Cardano, some of these could come from behind and completely take over the internet. And I think that's what makes it such an interesting space, and that's why there's success in the area. But when you look at it, I mean, we're not even above $1 trillion anymore in terms of overall market cap. I think the max number of users on like OpenSea was something like 1 million users. Like that's not a lot of people. Like we think people that are in Web3, there is very much a bubble. There is very much an echo chamber, and yeah, we're not as big as we think we are, but we are as powerful as we think we could be.
Ooh, that was a good one right there. We're not as big as we think we are, but we are as powerful as we think we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Okay, so then to hop on the other side is for the folks that are doing what you're saying of reducing friction, making the onboarding just absolutely seamless. To me, that shouts game. To me, that shouts just what you're saying. Go to a website, click play now, and then you're in, and everything else happens on the back end. Who are you? You already mentioned one, but who else are you seeing doing this in a really interesting and it's powerful, good way? And is it as simple as what I just described, or are they doing something, specific that makes it work for them?
So one project that I was really impressed with is Big Time, which is a Web3 game. It's like an MMO. It's a bit of a dungeon crawler. I got access to their beta and how to play. There's a video on the CryptoSlate YouTube channel of us playing it and talking to one of the team. And you don't need any knowledge of Web3 to play at all. You just download the launcher, start playing. NFTs drop at certain points in the game, and they basically make a kind of custodial wallet for you. And one of the interesting things that they're doing that I think is really novel and could help with adoption, I'm undecided whether I like it or not, but what they are doing is all of their NFTs will be cross-chain, because when the NFT drops, it's essentially registered within their database, but it's still off-chain until you withdraw it from the game into your own wallet, at which point it's actually minted, and you decide which chain you want to mint it on. So when you want to withdraw, it's at that point the NFT gets made, goes into your wallet. You want it on Avalanche, cool, you've got it on Avalanche. When you want to then use it in the game again, you have to deposit it into the game, and it gets burnt, but then registered in the game. So then if you want to pull it out again, and this time you want to pull it out on Ethereum, you can do. What this means is they use non-blockchain technology within the actual game to facilitate fast loading and low latency and all that sort of stuff. And it essentially acts very much like an exchange. Like you deposit Ethereum onto Binance, you trade with it. All those trades are offline. Like none of those, are off-chain. Like none of your trades on an exchange happen on-chain. They're all offline within their own order books. It's only then when you bring it out into your own wallet that there's another on-chain transaction. A great example of where people saw this for the first time, where they didn't, like one community that didn't realize this, I feel, was the Luna Classic like tax burn that was recent. Like there was a 1.2% tax burn. Exchanges said, like Binance said, yeah, we'll support it, but obviously, but only for deposits and withdrawals. People got up in arms about it, and now there's been the whole big thing with CZ trying to figure out what they're going to do with it, whether they're going to apply it to the trades. And I think they've now agreed that they're going to do it for the trades. But I think that was a really interesting example of an understanding how exchanges really work. And I think Big Time doing a similar thing with the game is quite novel. It's quite interesting. I'm not sure how I like it, because again, technically, yes, you've got NFTs, but the game could suspend withdrawals at any time, just like an exchange can. So I was thinking about it today, though, and I was thinking, well, if you're really worried about that, you can just withdraw your NFT and every time you stop playing. Like if you decide you're going to use Polygon, for instance, you deposit it, you're paying fractions of a penny to deposit it in gas fees. And when you pull it out, you're paying fractions of a penny again. So yeah, if you're worried about the custodial aspect of it, it seems like it's pretty frictionless to move it in and out of the game as and when you want to. And I think that's quite new. Metsukishi, it's a Japanese MMO. I played their alpha as well, great team. And they're doing a similar thing. They have Mini Ren as their token in their game. which is all off chain. Then you can convert it to the actual REN token when you want to pull it out of the game. And the same thing, if you don't want to know anything about Web3 or blockchain, you can play that game and completely ignore it. And just, you get NFTs dropped, you don't want to know about it, you ignore it. You could have an NFT that's worth $1,000, and if you really don't like NFTs, just ignore it, and it's just there in your account. But then if you ever decide later down the road, like, oh, wait a minute, I've earned like a couple of grand's worth of NFTs playing this game, maybe I will see what this crypto thing's about, then you can do that at a later date. And I think that's a great way for gaming to allow people into the space. But it's tough. Obviously, the traditional gaming world are not a fan of crypto at all. And I think naively, personally, I think my favorite part of my day today was actually arguing with Jason Schreier on Twitter, probably like the most well-known gaming journalist in the world. And we got into a bit of a good-natured debate on Twitter. And some of the guys from PokerStarter and Xborg came to my defense after I sounded the horn for, because they're two projects that I like, another two projects that I really respect at the moment. They're not really doing anything because they're not games projects, they're games sort of ecosystems. But yeah, PokerStarter Gaming and Xborg are two projects that I don't think I can talk about enough at the moment, because they're Daniel, who's the founder of PokerStarter, banned the term play to earn. Like earlier this year, I interviewed him at Paris Blockchain Week, and that's when he said, yeah, they're not even allowed to say play to earn in our company. It's play and earn at most. Like, the play has to be separate from the earn. And Omar, who runs PokerStarter Gaming, is really running with that vision. And Louis, who runs Xborg, I'm a big fan of Swissborg. So that's why I was interested in what they were doing. And they're doing some really interesting things around NFT ownership and building a community. So in the gaming space, I think, yeah, big time. I think Zilliqa is really interesting. I think the console is going to be super cool. Like, even if it just onboards another 10,000 gamers, but they do it seamlessly, it's going to be amazing. PokerStarter, Xborg, Zilliqa, and Big Time. They're the 4 projects in gaming that I'm like really interested in at the moment.
I love that. So I want to quickly give a shout out to our live audience members. I want to give a shout out to Blake, Sam, and Zed, Blake Broom, Sam Harris, and Zed Not Dead. Thank you all for commenting. Love you all, and everybody else watching and listening real time. So Akiba, let's actually jump into more of the content creation side and being a journalist, being a producer. There is an almost uncanny I see roadmap of people who get into crypto, and very soon either they're starting a podcast, they've started a blog, they started creating videos, they've started threading. I don't know what it is, but people love to create content. What I'm curious about is, from the perspective of somebody who creates content for, a very large portion of your life has been spent creating content. What would you say to these people? Because mostly from the perspective of, not everybody has something to say, or do they?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a particularly insightful perspective, how do you go about gathering one to where it's a value add for you to actually be putting in the time to create the content to blast it out to the world?
So I think that first part, what you said, is actually the most important, that not everyone has something to say, or something that's kind of worth listening to, I guess. Whenever I'm consulting on a project, the first thing I look at is what I consider the existential criteria, which is like the reason to be, why do you exist? And that's what you need to do around the project. Like, should you be doing this? Should someone else be doing this? If you weren't doing this, what else would you do? What could convince you that you should do this even when you shouldn't? Because we all have our own kind of confirmation biases. And I think that's the first step, because there's a lot of content in the world and there's a lot of noise. And making content is completely different now than it was when I started. I mean, I made my first film, completed it in like 2008. And the world's a very different place. YouTube, like, I remember one of my the other members of the Film Society at university actually going on TV because he got 1 million views on one of his videos. Like the Northwest, which is like the Northwest of England, Northwest Tonight, had him on to talk about his video because it got 1 million views. Like now, obviously, 1 million views happens to 1 million videos every day. But that was the level of sort of content that when I first started making it of what it meant and the size of the audiences. And back then, I think if you just had something good to say, then you could just go for it. Now, I think you've got to think why you're doing it. So my wife's a YouTuber as well, and she doesn't really care about views. She does it for the love of it. It's partly a kind of video diary. It's partly because she loves making videos and content. And if she gets a small number of views, and she has like a small, like loyal following, and it's a little community for her, and she absolutely loves that. Obviously, like everyone gets addicted to the numbers to a degree. Like if there's more views on the videos, then she will enjoy that. But that's not the reason why she does it. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Like she does it for the love of it. So if you just love doing it, then just make content and don't care about what anyone else says. And if you do want to try and make it into something that can grow, then you need to pick a niche and find something very, very specific and be the expert on it. I think that's got to be the key part. You can't go online and just be another general podcast or another sort of crypto podcast. You've got to find a niche and stick with it. I stopped making. So I had a music blog in 2010. And we got up to like 500 subscribers very, very quickly. Some other videos had up to like 30,000 views. And at the time, that was like 500 was not nothing. And it was steadily growing. And we were like interviewing some of the coolest bands in the world. I was basically just doing it for free tickets to gigs. Like I had an excuse to go and meet. Like I met Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 because of doing that. And it was amazing. And that was the only reason I was doing it. If I just stuck with it and accepted that, because obviously we were making a loss on it, we weren't really making any money. The ad revenue was crazy. We had 500 subscribers and we were making about $100 a month in ad revenue from YouTube, which is just insane, like from today's standards. And I really regret stopping that because all I need to do was just stick with it. And we would have probably been one of the larger music YouTube channels today. But we gave up on it because the growth was slow. My best friend that I mentioned, Adam, he did a similar thing. He started his YouTube channel after ours. And I remember he was celebrating when he surpassed our number of subscribers at 500. And he was making videos because we had a recording studio, or we still do. He was using the recording studio to make videos on how to do recording. He stuck with it, even though he was getting like hardly any views at all in his videos. And now it's his full-time job. He's got like 80,000 subscribers. He flies all around the world, meeting other music producers. He's known around the internet as the guy for Reaper, which is kind of competitor to Pro Tools. And that's his life now. He runs the recording studio is basically just the studio set for the YouTube channel because he stuck at it and went through that graft. And because he was making quality content. And some of his videos don't get very many views. Some of them get hundreds of thousands because it's kind of he's a resource. It is a form of entertainment, but it's a knowledge source. So yeah, you just got to stick at it. Really, find something interesting. Find a niche. His, for instance, was Reaper, and yeah, he's the Reaper guy now. So I think that would be my advice. Either don't do it, which is fine, and like join the community that's already exists and help out in that way. You don't have to necessarily be on camera. Or if you're really passionate, you just got to find that niche and really narrow down on it, and keep your content consistent with that narrative. Because as soon as you start like trying to dilute what you're doing, actually, I was watching Lex Freeman's podcast with the Botez sisters the other day, and Andrea said it really beautifully in that she said that she tried to bring her other interest into their YouTube channel and their Twitch live stream. And she started doing kind of like, I think she said workouts and exercise, reading and some other things. And she realized that just didn't work. It's not what people are interested in. They come to her for chess content. So that's what they need to do. And it's the same, like, just because you're interested, and you realize that you can use her time outside of the stream and outside of the public life to enjoy those hobbies. So yeah, when you have that niche, stick to it and don't waver just because you're interested in something else.
So a quick follow up on that, and then this is something I want to double click on or triple click if that's even possible. But on the idea of picking a spot, becoming an expert, and then sticking to it over the long term, that middle part, becoming an expert.
You don't have to be an expert. You just got to be interested in it. Like, learn with an audience. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, find something you are, like, find a niche, and a very, like, as specific a niche as possible that obviously has, like, people interested. Don't be like, oh, I'm just going to make videos on the road signs in Manchester. Like, oh, actually, I've got a friend that did a YouTube channel about the map system in London, and he's now one of the biggest YouTubers on History Channel. So what do I know? Sometimes it can be really, really obscure. But yeah, just pick something really niche that there isn't a lot going on in the space. Oh, and one other tip is do that, but then look at the trends for the most successful YouTube channels, if it's on YouTube or whatever platform you're on, and follow those trends within your niche. So if what's going on, what's kind of the meta of the social platform that you're on is interviews, try and do loads of interviews. If the meta is, and this is down into like thumbnails even, like I haven't actually been checking sort of the YouTube homepage, but like in 2020, the only YouTube thumbnails that worked were like with them some graphics on it. Like that was every thumbnail. And I remember like Meet Kevin was always talking on his kind of his private live streams about how to improve a YouTube channel for a thumbnail. It's like, if your thumbnail isn't like 80% your face, you're doing it wrong. And all the successful YouTubers had those thumbnails. Again, your titles, like every part of your content is super important. And you need to experiment with it all. But I say, look at what the most successful channels are doing outside of your industry. That's the key bit. Then bring those elements of either the thumbnail styles, the title styles, the descriptions, the video formats. Are the top channels doing like a quick, hey, I'm such and such, and today we're going to talk about blah. Here, roll the intro and then go. Or are they running an intro first? Like, look at all these things and apply all of them to your little niche, and then just put your head down and keep making content and make it consistent. Like, decide what you can do that's feasible for you. If it's once a week, if it's twice a week, and make sure you hit that schedule and keep making the content. And if you have budget, I think, and this is what we do with the CryptoSlate, the YouTube, is when you're seeding a new channel, put ad spend behind it, because you don't need a lot. Like on YouTube, for instance, we can target our audience to people that are interested in financial news, avid news readers, and for around about like $10, it will generate. Well, put it this way, it's around about 2 cents a view. So you don't need to spend much to get your videos up over that initial barrier in terms of views to outside of your audience set. Because obviously, when you're at kind of 1 subscriber, you're really hoping you win the lottery to get it into someone's feed for someone to find it. Whereas if you can bump it up and like don't buy views, they don't do anything. You go to like a social media panel site and say buy 500 views for your video, yeah, it's going to do nothing because it's just bots watching it and YouTube won't care. But you run some ads onto it, get real people into the videos, put like say 10, 15, 20, 50, whatever you can afford just into each video. You're then a channel that's got over 1,000 views, over 2,000, however you set your limits, to get it out there and to get it into the algorithm and get it start stimulating. That's the other top tip that I would give for content.
I like that. I've also found that trying to document what I'm learning and inviting people to join me on this journey of learning it together, kind of like you were saying, like learn with that to me takes the pressure off, because I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert. I love being the forever student of life and learning about a bunch of different things and learning from really interesting people. So that definitely works for me personally. It's hard to be the expert because you don't want to have to form an opinion on everything, because then you're just eventually going to sound like an asshole.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the bits of feedback that I got from my live stream. Was one of the viewers was like, "I love your content because you don't come across like you think you're better than people," and I think that's really important because within the crypto industry, especially, like there's so many shillers and arrogant content creators that do think they're better than people, and on a long enough timeline, they're going to get found out. The other thing actually is what you're doing, which is great. It's collaborations, like reach out to people that have got an audience, that have got a reach, that have got a following, and something interesting within your niche, and try and add value. Like that's the key thing. It's very much the Gary Vaynerchuk approach, but how can you add value to them? If you're asking someone to come on a podcast or do a video, it's going to require their effort. Make it as seamless as possible. Like I loved your whole little process. Like I got an email. It was like, this is what to expect. This is what you need to do to prepare. It was like super professional. And that's fantastic because then I can spend I spent zero time preparing for this because I knew that it was a conversation and I had all the information in the email, made complete sense, super easy in terms of the setup. And that's what you need to do. Make it easy for people, try and add value, and yeah, do collaborations wherever you can.
And I would also say, as far as just my process, I'm actually not as particularly interested in the biggest audience size of the people that I reach out to. I always look for somebody that has something meaningful to say and something that would be really interesting to talk about. And then I think I would have questions for, because none of this is scripted. And so mostly it's just exploring curiosities and having hopefully interesting chats with definitely interesting people. So that I'm not even like, I don't even particularly care about the audience number of the guest. I want to make sure that they actually know what they're talking about. They're not just completely full of shit, which you run into from time to time, but
yeah, and you'll win on the long run with that strategy. Like you 100% will, because one of the things that people forget is you don't need views like day one either. There's plenty of YouTube channels that blew up years down the line, and now it looks like all the videos always had loads of views, and they didn't. Like that content, and like Adam's a great example. So anyone that's interested in music tech, the channel's Hop Pole Studios on YouTube. That's with a H-O-P. It's the name of the pub that we bought and converted into a recording studio. He had one video that had like 6 figures in views, and every other video had like 400 views for a long time because that one video was how to record in Reaper, and it was his tutorial, and it was the best tutorial, even though the sound was garbage. His insights and knowledge into the topic were incredible, and that became like cornerstone content. So me and him, I talked to him on strategy. He does all the actual work, but we talk on strategy every now and then. And we decided that cornerstone content would be really important. So he then did a 6-hour video going through every different type of speaker with every different type of guitar cabinet and showing people what they all sounded like. And it's now like, it's the resource for speakers. Like even Celestian, who works with him on the video, who make the speakers, like use it for reference on what things sound like, because it's all of the speakers in one place. And he's insane for doing it, but I mean, that's why we're friends. So yeah, cornerstone content. And if you're talking to interesting people, then those videos can also blow up way down the line.
Absolutely. Especially with podcasting, because what I've noticed is that once somebody finds your podcast and they like the podcast, typically people are very curious to know more, and then they want to be a part of it with you. For example, one of our hesitant to say regulars, but one of our regulars here, Zed Not Dead. Shout out to you again, buddy. I love you. Zed will show up to and comment to almost all the videos. And it's like, I love people like that because, especially Zed, because usually will comment and contribute and, join the conversation a bit. So like, that's a lot of fun. But on top of that, an individual who gets with it and joins and wants to really be a part of it, what oftentimes will happen is if you have a really strong library of content, then that individual can then go back through the archives and they can hear all the greatest, the greatest hits of your past, for example, interviews in this case. And then, you're able to provide a lot of value to them, helping to bring great conversations to them. But one really killer episode, if you get 5 people that really enjoyed that and they want more, well, if they click follow and they start downloading all your episodes, if you have 100 episodes, then that's 500 downloads and you converted 5 people. So that multiplies very, very effectively. And that's a really powerful thing with podcasting specifically. Now, I actually want to jump, it's kind of like a crossover back into something we kind of touched on, but then diverged from the path, is this idea of picking the niche and going really deep into it, but then keeping the other stuff out. This is something that I personally have struggled with in the past, because my purview of interests are wide. They're huge, and so I often find myself really excited about a particular topic and going all in on it. For example, the Crypto Gaming Institute. But then it's like, okay, well, what if you find a macroeconomic genius who's won 7 Nobel Prizes and done all these things, but it's a Web 2 investor, but then you want to talk, like, you kind of want to loop it into the Crypto Gaming Institute and talk about that kind of stuff. How have you bridged that gap between, there's so many cool, interesting people out there you want to talk to, you want to get insight from, but you want to still keep it in the core. How do you bridge that gap there?
I mean, I think it's as simple as, can you bring the conversation into what your niche is? If not, like, don't. You can still talk to those people, but if you've created a niche and you've created a theme around your content creation, like, I feel that you get the privilege of being able to branch out once you've developed an audience and once you've developed yourself as someone that people can trust, respect, and are interested in your opinion. At that point, go for it. Like, do whatever you want and create separate channels. And you see people doing this all the time. Even big content creators try and create side channels and they just don't work out, or just not worth the hassle for the amount of revenue and all these sorts of things. But yeah, I think it's just, don't. If you can bring it into the topic and find a way to talk about it, then great, do that. Like, sometimes we get news on the site and it's like, we feel like we should cover this, but is there a crypto angle? And essentially at that point, it's like, okay, well, can we talk about how this affects the price of Bitcoin? Or can we talk about how Bitcoin Bitcoin or crypto can solve this problem? In that case, yeah, we can do a story with that as the angle. Otherwise, we just don't cover it. I mean, we get it on a daily basis. Like, I mean, I'm in the UK and obviously the pound's tanking. And that's a huge story. And I'm covering like financial stuff day to day. But writing a story just about the pound tanking doesn't really fit our audience. Yeah, our researcher, James, absolute incredible talent. Like, shout out to James, our lead researcher. He did some digging on Glassnode and saw the volume chart on GBP BTC, so Bitcoin denominated by pounds. The volume shot up at the same time as the pound dropped. So it showed that people actually were going to Bitcoin as a store of value against the pound as it was falling. That's fascinating, and we can report on that. But just the pound falling, not necessarily. So I think it's looking, kind of thinking laterally and thinking around the subject of how can you tie it into something that's relevant to what your niche is.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Well, Akiba, I know we're running close to time here, and we may actually even be over time. And I see in your clock back there that it's very late for you. So, so I want to be respectful of your time, and I tremendously appreciate thus far. I want to just quickly scope out here. You're talking to a lot of people. You're covering a lot of ground. Clearly, you're doing a lot of good work in space. How early are we really? And just for context of people listening, not live, we're filming this September 28th, 2022. There's been some it's very interesting things going on in the crypto space. We've been in somewhat of a bear market. I think it's confirmed bear. Things are down.
100% a bear market. Bitcoin's at 19,000 from 67. Yeah, this is a bear market.
Yeah.
If anyone's
down
watching and
60.
thinks this might still be a bull market, I'm sorry, this is a bear market. And most likely, it's not financial advice. I'm not talking to anyone specifically, but as a whole, yeah, we're probably going to be here until the next Bitcoin halving, in my view. Yeah.
So we're down. We're down 60 to 90% across the board. It's a bear market. Things are crazy, but still, many more people know about crypto. Many more people know about crypto gaming. Hundreds of billions of dollars are coming into through venture capital and big time money coming into the space. A lot of it is going into equity of companies building in the space, so it's not quite trickling in just yet. But through different grant programs, investments, blah, 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 hiring people in the space, you're going to put, money's flowing in, is coming in, but prices are down. So how early are we really? What is your sense of that? And maybe you can give us kind of a couple of milestones that you think we're going to hit on the way to the, the holy grail of Ready Player One-esque type, the future there.
So in 2020, I wrote an article that said, it was on Benzinga, that was before I joined CryptoSlate, which was similar to what I was saying earlier, actually. I think I said like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and what would I have chosen? XRP or something are essentially the Alta Vista, Lycos, and Ash Jeeves of Web3. With the view that I felt that we were in a similar place to where we were just before or just after the dot-com bubble crash. I think it's interesting because crypto has crashed similarly to the dot-com bubble twice now, 2017 and then also 2021. I think it's the equivalent. I mean, there's a chart that we've used in stories before that shows the user adoption of the internet compared to crypto. And I think it's interesting. The crypto one kind of goes like across for a while and then starts to go up. It was quite slow to get off the ground, but it's now moving at a similar pace. So in terms of how early are we? Very early. You say like the overall market cap of crypto at its peak was like 1.3 trillion. The market cap of gold is around 12 trillion. I think Bitcoin has the potential in the future to become the world's reserve currency, at which point 12 trillion is probably easy to reach. We could go way beyond that. So we're very early, earlier than most people think, and it's okay that people don't get it, and it's okay for things to fail. Like this is essentially like a live beta test of a new financial system, and things will mess up. I really wish that people weren't losing money, and like everyday people. I think that's why it's so important to like really understand what you're investing in. Like this isn't like magic internet money that only goes up. Like this is a very volatile asset that if you aren't investing in anything, and like obviously only invest what you can afford to lose, and like literally what you can afford to lose, that if it goes to zero, you will be okay. And if your bags grow to a point where you start like if you can't sleep at night because you're too happy or you're too scared about your investments, you're over invested. Like pull it out. Like if you've invested $50 and then it goes up to being worth $10,000 and that's more money than you've ever held, sell half of it. Like if you need to. If 5,000 will make you less wary, then do that. Do whatever you can so that you feel that you are able to watch this emerging technology grow. Because like if Bitcoin went back to $1, I wouldn't be massively surprised if that happened. But I also would just be buying Bitcoin left, right, and center. But it is hard because people say that when it was at like 6,000, 7,000, and was like, "Oh, I wish it was lower, so I might cheap it." It goes lower, and it's really hard to buy during that when you've seen things are down. And then as soon as things start to go up again, you want to buy again, and it's so easy to just lose money constantly by buying low and buying high and selling low. In terms of milestones that we want to look for, well, I think we got ahead of ourselves when Tesla bought $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, and we thought that was a milestone. And it was kind of a false flag because it's not real adoption. I think the big milestone is, you know what? I think it could be gaming. I'm starting to get really bullish on the fact that the next bull run could be stimulated through gaming because there's some really, really incredible stuff going on. And computer games don't care what the price of Bitcoin is. They do not. And like the Xborg mint recently, their NFT mint was, I think I minted for like 0.25 ETH. It was worth 1.3 within 2 days because they created a system that encouraged people to hold on to the NFT. And it also gives you import and value and essentially ownership into the Xborg community to decide what games are involved, and you're basically, it's pretty much like being involved in the guild. And I think it's super exciting, and I love there's all quests and things you can do within the Discord channel by owning it. Super exciting. So yeah, my take is that gaming is going to be what DeFi was to crypto in 2020.
Well, clearly I'm biased and completely and totally agree with you. But also trying to be as unbiased as possible. If we just look at the statistics, just check out DApp Radar, see where the most usage is, the most number of users, the highest number of transactions, transaction volume. Where's that all moving towards right now? It's pretty outrageously skewed towards gaming, which is really exciting to see. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a wild ride. I know for sure it's not going to be boring. That I know for sure. It's at least going to be exciting. So you might lose it all. This could all just be, a complete house of cards. I don't think so, but at the very least, it'll be a lot of fun along the ride.
The technology has a real use case, and that's the thing. Like, projects need to make sure they're solving a problem. That was the issue with like Axie Infinity and Steppen. They made out like they were solving a problem for gamers, but they weren't. It was just GameFi, which is what it became known as. It's just gamified finance, gamified investing. The current state of Web3, Web3 gaming, which even someone on a panel at Zebu Live that I was emceeing for last week missed out on. He was saying, "Oh, Web3 games, it's just click and earn." It's like, that's like 6 months ago, and the industry moves ridiculously fast. The amount of games with Unity, Unreal Engine, like real games you don't even need to know about crypto to play, but are built on the blockchain, like they're here. And in 12 months' time, no idea what we're going to have in terms of gaming because it moves so fast.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, anyways, Akiba, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, I hope being on the other side of the microphone for a change was a nice change of pace.
It has, but be careful. I might always tap you up and put you in the hot seat as well for our podcast one day.
Well, always happy to do so. And just tremendously appreciate your time. I want to again thank all the watchers and listeners. Love you guys. Y'all are really the lifeblood of this. So thank you very, 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 very much for sharing your time with us today. Where obviously everybody can see your Twitter handle at Akiba Blade. No spaces or anything. Is that really a good portal to jump into all the rabbit holes of your work?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't like Twitter. Oh, look, follow me on Lens. That's where you want to go. You don't need a Lens profile to follow someone on Lens. Lens is Web3 social media built by Aave. The team at Lens are super, super cool. I'm extremely excited about what they're doing. I could probably talk for another hour just on Lens, so I'll keep it brief. But yeah, you can go to, let's say, Lenster and search for Akiba.lens, which is me. You can follow me and you get my little Lens NFT, and then you can try and shill that on OpenSea for 2 cents and watch no one buy it. But you then get to you'll then get like my updates and stuff on Lenster, and you can collect like articles and stuff that go up there. And there is going to be some very exciting stuff to do with CryptoSlate and Lens in the not too distant future.
Ooh, a little bit of alpha here. A little bit of alpha for the folks that stayed past the hour. I love it. All right, Akiba, thank you very much, my man. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody watching and listening. And I will see you all on the next episode.